Hello. I'd like to thank you for making the choice to join us here at the Greenbrier Church Online. My name's Jeremy Houck, and I grew up in church buildings. Most of my memories took place in a church building or with church people. The rules, the traditions, the songs, the rituals, those are all deeply ingrained in my mind. And if you've been a part of a group for any amount of time, you know what I'm talking about because you know the rules, even the unwritten ones. You know what's proper, you know the process, you know the practices, you even know the language. It's been said that church people have our own vocabulary. We call it Christianese. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, our church building here, we don't have a gym, we have a family life center. We know what it means if somebody has backslidden. We freely use words and phrases like we were washed in the blood or we take communion. And we want to make sure that everybody has a personal relationship with Jesus. And I kind of like that one. I like this idea of us having a personal relationship with Jesus because it sounds warm and intimate and relational. But as soon as we say that, we've got to kind of define what it means, right? Because I'm willing to be honest enough to admit that there are times that my personal relationship with Jesus is an awful lot like my personal relationship with the Waze app on my phone. And I think you know what I'm talking about. When I get in my car, the Waze app pops up on the screen and asks me, where do I want to go? And so I type in the address, and this calm, polite voice says, turn left in 500 feet. Usually I hear the voice and I follow the directions, but honestly, there are some times, every now and then, when I decide that I know a better route. I know a faster route, and so I just ignore the voice and I do my own little thing. I mean, honestly, if the GPS could see what I see or know what I know, it would definitely send me the way that I'm going because I can see it. I know what's going on around me. I'm paying attention. And I have no problem abandoning that little voice in a heartbeat. My relationship with my GPS is purely transactional. I obey it when it's convenient, when I think it's right, and I ignore it when I believe that I know a better way. And I honestly think that describes what a lot of us think it means to have a personal relationship with Jesus. We live like the only thing required to feel safe in our relationship is all we got to do is know all the rules, know all the jargon, follow his voice whenever it's convenient. There's this passage in Luke's gospel that's been stuck in my head for quite some time now, and I can't get it out of my mind. In Luke chapter 6, Jesus has just finished the Sermon on the Plain. He's talked about loving your enemies. He's talked about giving generously, about not judging other people. And in verse 46, we see that Jesus ends the sermon with a very direct and pointed question. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? Originally, I had something else planned for the weeks leading up to the holiday season. But this passage, this question that Jesus asked, has really been on my mind lately. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, if you don't do what I say? That's kind of what we've been talking about the last 3 months. I'm going to make an assumption that since you're watching a sermon online, you would claim to have a personal relationship with Jesus, or you're looking to have a personal relationship with Jesus. My question is, are we just calling Jesus Lord, or are we actually living out what we profess? Most of us have never really had a problem with saying all the right things. Our struggle is that there are times that our actions, our lives, contradict our words. Last week I mentioned the book, The Christian Atheist, and so over the next few weeks, I plan to take some time to think about the relationship that we actually have with Jesus. And right now, I'm not really sure where we're going. I can assume there might be some things that we talk about that are a little uncomfortable. And while I'm not afraid of being uncomfortable, it's not my intention to make people uncomfortable. My prayer is that as we get into the pages of Scripture, we will consider our relationship with God and see what we have to actually do if we're going to live out every day what we profess that we believe. So today I want to start by looking at something the Apostle Paul writes to Titus. Now, Titus is a young minister working in Crete, and the work is difficult. As a matter of fact, it appears that there are people who are trying to claim to have an association with the church while they're living like their culture. So Paul says, they claim to know God, but their actions prove that they really don't. They deny him by the way they live. They are disgusting. They won't obey God, and they are too worthless to do anything good. These people make a claim that they know God, that they have a relationship with God. They go and sit in a building. They know all the words to the songs. They're well versed in the culture. They speak the language. They make this grand profession that they believe in Christ. And Paul says their actions, the way that they're actually living, well, that tells the awful truth about their real relationship with God. They dress up real nice. But the truth is, they're wretched and hateful and disobedient and useless and good for nothing. They don't really know God, which is a travesty because God longs for us to know him. God is our beautiful creator. He loves us and he created us to have a relationship with him. He wants us to know him. He's done everything and given us every opportunity to know him. But the truth is, not everybody who claims to know God actually knows him. And so I thought today we could start by talking about three different groups. I believe that everyone who claims to know God will fall into one of these three groups. And the first one is people that believe in God, but they just don't know him. It's possible to know about God, to have information about God, to collect information about God, and to say that you believe in God, while at the same time having no relationship with him. This called being a cultural Christian. It's somebody who says, I believe that I'm a Christian because I was raised by Christian parents. I believe in God theoretically, but there's really nothing in my life that would cause you to actually believe that I know God. The Apostle John addresses this mindset in 1 John 2, and he has some pretty direct words about people who claim to believe in God, but they don't actually know God. He writes, we can be sure that we know God if we obey his commands. Anyone who says, I know God, but does not obey God's commands is a liar, and the truth is not in that person. There's a difference between knowing that God exists and living your life like God exists. According to John, when you make the claim that you know God, but your life doesn't represent any of the teachings of Jesus, you're not applying any of those teachings, you're a liar. There's no truth in you at all. Think of it like a man who makes a vow to God before his friends and his family to love and to honor and to cherish a woman, his bride. He's going to love her in sickness and in health, richer or poorer. But when they get home from the ceremony, he just ignores her, or worse, he criticizes her, or worse, he walks into another room so that he can look at women online. Instead of sitting down for dinner with his new wife, he goes out to the bar and he starts talking and flirting with all of these other women. His life doesn't live up to his confession. John's merely repeating what he heard Jesus say in Matthew 7. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonderful works in your name? But then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice evil. Jesus is saying that we can go through all the right motions. We can sit every Sunday through an hour and 15-minute long service. You might have been baptized when you were 15. Maybe you put some money in the offering plate. You've said a few prayers. And John and Jesus both say that there is a possibility that on the day of judgment, you will hear Jesus say, I never knew you. And the reason is because you were content to know things about God. You just never actually took the time to know God. Secondly, there are those who believe in God and they know Him, they just don't know Him very well. I think some of us know God, but we've never fostered a deep, life-changing relationship with Him. We know Him, we just don't know Him very well. Let me give you an example. When Trista and I lived in Franklin, Tennessee, there were a lot of people in the music industry. A lot. So one day we're in a Walmart and somebody runs into the back of me with their shopping cart. I whipped around and I saw a woman, a baby, and Billy Ray Cyrus, Mr. Achy Breaky Heart himself. Billy Ray started apologizing immediately. He said he was so sorry, wasn't paying attention, he didn't mean to. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's not that big a deal. We're all good. I introduced myself. My name's Jeremy. This is my wife, Trista. He introduced me, introduced his wife, introduced his daughter that was sitting in the grocery cart. We talked for a couple minutes about life in Franklin and what we were doing, and then we went on our way. Franklin's not a big city, or it wasn't at the time. And so there were several times that we would be at Sonic or a grocery store or the hardware store, and we would bump into Billy Ray. He always would say, hey guys, how you doing? Have you been to Walmart lately? We'd laugh, we'd talk for a moment or two, and then we'd go back to what we were doing. He was always incredibly nice. Now, I can honestly tell you that I know Billy Ray Cyrus. I just don't know him well. There was a time that we would see each other, we would talk for a few minutes, we recognized each other, but that was a long time ago. I haven't kept up with him or, what's going on in his life. I do keep up with him a little bit, the little girl that was sitting in the shopping cart, but you wouldn't say we had a relationship, which is an awful lot like the relationship that some of us have with God. Greg Rochelle put it this way: a lot of us have been informed about Jesus, but we've yet to be transformed by Jesus. If you grew up in the church like I did, then you've been able to accumulate an awful lot of information. You know the stories, Adam and Eve, David and Goliath, Jesus walking on the water. You even know the obscure stories like Ehud, the left-handed judge, or Micaiah, the sarcastic prophet. But how has that information changed your life? My fear is that many of us would find ourselves sitting on a pew in Laodicea. You may remember what Jesus says to them in the book of Revelation. He says, I know all the things that you do, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish you were one or the other. But since you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. You say, I'm rich. I have everything I want. I don't need a thing. And you don't realize that you are wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. The Christians in Laodicea would tell you that everything was fine. I mean, I know Jesus. Their lives are turning out really, really well. They're being blessed. They're comfortable. They have disposable income. They have some nice clothes. But when Jesus looks at them and he looks at the way that they're living, he says, you're not fine. You're wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. People who know God but don't know him very well, they're satisfied with the information they've accumulated. The real test is not how much do you know about Jesus, it's how much have you changed to be like Jesus. Are you the same person that you were a year ago with just more biblical facts in your brain? Or is the life of Jesus becoming more evident in your attitudes, your words, your relationships, your priorities? Because at the end of the day, the goal of the Christian life is not to become a walking biblical encyclopedia that gets all the questions right on Jeopardy. The goal is to become a living, breathing portrait of Christ. Which brings us to the third category. People who know God intimately and serve him wholeheartedly. People who really know God are the ones who know what it means to walk by faith and not by sight. They know when they're being convicted of their sin, they're willing to do whatever it takes to get their lives right. People who have an intimate relationship with God are the ones who see God moving in every different aspect of their life. They recognize Him in the conversations they have with people. They follow His nudging to care for or to reach out to somebody. They know His comfort when something wrong happens. They feel His supernatural peace. David was not perfect by any means. I mean, he was broken. There were even times that he just made the decision to walk away from God. But David is called a man after God's own heart. David loved God, and David knew God intimately, which is why he could write these words found in the 63rd Psalm. "O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My body longs for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory, because your love is better than life. My lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands." David longs for God. This psalm is so intimate. "Oh God, you are my God." Not, "Oh God, you are a God. You're not some God. You're not one of many gods. God, you're my God. And my soul and my body ache for you because I've seen you. I've gazed upon your power and your glory." I didn't just hear about it. I wasn't satisfied with that. I experienced you firsthand. I would choose your love over life every day because I've had the opportunity to know you. Nobody can stop me from worshiping you and giving you praise every moment of every day. Now, David's not perfect. He doesn't have it all together, but David knew God intimately. He longed to praise God through everything that he did, which is so different from, I believe in God, but I'm going to live my life the way that I want to. When you develop an intimate relationship with God, you're going to notice that your heart begins to break for the things that break the heart of God. You're going to start to care about things that you had never cared about before. You're going to begin to have a burden for people that are overlooked, that are outcast. All of a sudden, you're going to have this passion for the poor. Suddenly, you're going to be praying for people that you never thought about praying for before. When you sin, you don't beat yourself up over it. You just go to the throne of grace quickly. You ask for forgiveness. When you have an intimate relationship with God, you start to hear His gentle voice. You hear His voice loving you and encouraging you, correcting you and guiding you. You sense His presence all throughout the day. You have a longing to have more of Him in your life. When you have an intimate relationship with God, Sunday mornings, they're a celebration with your brothers and sisters because you've been worshiping God all week and you cannot wait to gather with your church family and bring that worship with you. You quit thinking of church as just a place that you go and you realize that you are the church. You see yourself as a part of the family of God. When you have an intimate relationship with God, you're no longer content to just consume. You look at all the gifts that you have and how God uniquely wired and created you, and you long to give back. Not just your money, because it's not your money. You recognize that it's God's money. It's His money. You put it into the work. You put it into the church. But more than that, you long to share your time and your talents. You want to serve because you realize you're not just a Christian. You take on that role of what Peter calls us as a royal priesthood. You would tell people that you're a full-time minister. You just work at a school or a bank or a factory. Today we go to the tables to celebrate the fact that God has gone to extreme lengths for us to be able to know him. God's done everything required and more so that we can have a deep and intimate relationship with him. We celebrate the bread and the cup because we accept his invitation to come close to him, to know him, to be known by him. But most of all, we go to the tables because we long to say, just as David said, your love is better than life. It's my hope and prayer that you have a wonderful time around the tables today, that you're able to work through these questions and to talk and to think about, what do you know about God? And how is the knowledge that you have of God changing and affecting the way that you live every single day? Do you just know about God, or have you been transformed by God? And I hope the discussion that you have today continues on for the rest of your life as we all strive to be more and more like the one who loved us first. I hope you have a wonderful week. Never forget how deeply you're loved. And I look forward to seeing you very soon.